Okay, our next guest. So first, I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin mining. I think mining just is the most wonderful thing that was invented for but for assisting the power grid and the management of electricity. And the next guest that'll be speaking to you is Daniel Batten. Now, Daniel is a Bitcoin ESG analyst and climate tech investor, and he is a leading voice proving Bitcoin's positive environmental impact. So please help me in welcoming Daniel.
Buenos dias. Hello, how is everyone? Is it good? So this morning you heard Joe Bryant describe Bitcoin. Do you remember how he described it? It's everything you don't understand about technology combined with what? Everything you don't understand about money. So what's Bitcoin mining then? Well, Bitcoin mining, it's real simple. It's everything you don't understand about technology combined with everything you don't understand about money, combined with everything you don't understand about energy. So that's what I'm going to talk about, Bitcoin mining. Now, to kick things off, who remembers when that happened? About a year ago. Who was here when the blackout occurred on the Iberian Peninsula? Quite a few. Okay, raise your hands if you were not here. Okay, so about probably 50-50, slightly more people were here. For those of you who were not here, it sounded like it was pretty wild. It happened during the day and it lasted for about 10 hours. It affected all of Spain and Portugal. Lights went out, hospital generators came on. If I was giving a conference at the time, suddenly the presentation would have gone down, the lights would have gone off, my mic would have stopped working. Traffic lights stopped working and trains stopped in tunnels. Now, about a week ago I was writing this keynote here. It even says Madrid Keynote. And this is about how Bitcoin mining could have prevented this blackout from occurring. But I can't give this talk because Bitcoin mining would not have prevented that blackout. Sorry. But I can give another talk. And I think this one could be even better. Because it turned out that what happened since the investigation revealed a lot about how Bitcoin mining specifically could stabilize grids around the world. So let's get stuck into that presentation. Now, to start with, let's take you back to the beginning. This is me, back in 1974, living on the west coast of New Zealand, in a small rural community where a rubbish tip was proposed, and I did my first environmental action along with my mother and a group of the community at age 4. And this would give birth to a whole swathe of decades-long involvement in protest, direct action in environmental causes, which culminated in me in between starting a technology company. When I exited that, I started a climate tech fund. I started a triple bottom line investment company, investing in technologies that could help people, profit, and planet. I was not supposed to be on this stage now, but I asked a dangerous question. Could our fund be doing more? And the answer pointed to Bitcoin. The data pointed to Bitcoin. And I'm not very good at ignoring data. The narrative has changed a lot. Who's noticed this? That the narrative's changed a lot. What you're reading in the newspapers about Bitcoin is not quite as vitriolic, at least on the subject of Bitcoin wastes energy. We have now flipped that in our head. And unlike what some people are postulating, that's not because the media attention has gravitated towards AI data centers. That's due to the proof of work of a lot of people who work really hard behind the scenes to flip that narrative, proof that people coming together can change narratives. But it also happened because of this, some really good data. 24 peer-reviewed journal articles, all saying that Bitcoin has benefits to the grid, methane mitigation, obviates gas peaker plants, reduces electricity prices, stabilizes grids, monetizes otherwise wasted renewable energy. 8 independent articles, including Cambridge and Duke University. And a whole swathe of other data came out, including real-life case studies to support what we now know The Bitcoin isn't just not boiling the oceans, it's actually positive for the environment and for our energy systems. So what's the problem? Stop me if you've heard someone ask that question before today. But trust me, you haven't heard someone ask that question today in this context. What's the problem when it comes to energy? Well, here's the problem. Right now, there is more variable renewable energy going onto our grids than ever before in our history. Very inflexible supply of energy and very unpredictable. And on the other hand, over here, on the demand side, you've got more AI data centers going onto the grid than ever before in human history. Very inflexible and very unpredictable, spiky demand. And that's what's happening to our grids. It's a little bit like, I come from Costa Rica. And imagine if you're driving an articulated truck without suspension down a highway. That's kind of like what renewable energy is like. It lacks that shock absorber when the sun goes behind a cloud or the wind stops blowing. And then imagine, at the same time, it's a Costa Rican highway. So you've got lots of potholes, unpredictable spikes and troughs of demand. That's your AI data centers. That is the reality that we're facing. And the solution is you need an almighty shock absorber in the middle. And it turns out there is no better shock absorber in the world than Bitcoin mining. But let me put it to you a different way, without talking about megawatts and gigawatt hours. What do we have here? Huh? Bees. 2 Bs. Everyone agree? 2 Bs? Yep. Yep. Huh? One's a wasp. Which one? The one on the right's a wasp? This one here? Well, you're right or my right? So this one here is a wasp, huh? It's not a wasp. It is a yellow-legged hornet, but you're close. And this one here is a bee. But the point is this, they look similar, don't they? And when 2 things look very similar, you can make similar decisions about what you should do about these 2 different types of beasts. If you're a gardener, do you think it matters whether you let a yellow-legged hornet into your garden or a bee? It's going to have devastating consequences. Now, they look the same. They're both flying insects. They both have a bit of yellow, a bit of black. They both have wings. They both have 6 legs and antennae. Just like Bitcoin mining data centers and AI data centers, they share a lot of similarity. They both have data center in the title. They both use a lot of energy. But they are as different as a bee and a yellow-legged hornet. If you're a gardener and you don't have bees in your garden, you'll still have a garden. Those crops that self-pollinate or require the wind will still grow, but you won't have so many fruit. You won't have so many nuts. You won't have a method to balance the ecology of that garden, to maintain it and to sustain it. But if you're a gardener and you let in the yellow-legged hornet, that will attack other pollinators, chew the bark, and destroy a lot of the fruit. Being nuanced about the nature of the data center we're letting into our garden, i.e. into our grid, matters. Let's look at another image. Okay, what do we have here? 2 fungi. Who would eat both of these fungi? Raise your hand. Okay, who would eat one of them but not the other? Okay, which one? The one from the left, you're safe. Okay, who would eat the one from the right? I tricked you, they're both safe, they're both mushrooms. Completely edible. But here's the point. No one raised their hands and said they'd eat both. Why? Because you weren't sure. Because the cost of making a mistake was fatal. And in the same way, where we lack clarity, it's a human tendency, not a psychological tendency, but an evolutionary tendency that we assume the worst for our survival. And that is why we have not had enough Bitcoin mining making its way onto the grids. Because the policymakers and the regulators of this world have lumped in the bee with the yellow-legged hornet, have lumped in Bitcoin mining with AI data centers, are assuming both are unsafe, so I won't consume either. This talk in this room is from one Bitcoiner to a whole bunch of other Bitcoiners. It's not going to change that. But you will be meeting with policymakers, regulators, investors, members of the community, and through you helping them gain more clarity about the distinction and subtlety between Bitcoin mining and AI, you can help to create this education which can lead to a pronounced difference in behaviors, from avoidance to embracing. Because Bitcoin and renewable energy is like lichen. Lichen is actually not one organism, but two. It's both an algae and a fungi. And that's what gives it its resilience. See, the algae part, that creates the energy. That's like the renewable energy part. But by itself, it's unable to withstand extremes of temperature, either extremely negative or extremely positive. And in the same way, renewable energy without the Bitcoin mining to give it that structural support is vulnerable to extreme negative pricing and extreme positive pricing. Together, Bitcoin mining does two things, not one. Number one, it monetizes the otherwise wasted renewable energy. What does that do? It means the renewable energy provider is more profitable. What does that do? It means, like any prudent business owner, they pour that profit back into doing what? Expanding their business. More solar, more wind on the grid. It promotes the renewable energy transition. But this is not my opinion. This is backed up in numerous case studies around the world and peer-reviewed research. But it does a second thing. It balances the grid. It balances the intermittency of that renewable energy. It provides that shock absorber layer so you have a smooth ride. And this is not theory. This is happening right now. Let me explain what this statistic means. So a few weeks ago, I was talking to a client of mine. His name is Batten Patel. Batten has a large array of ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits, i.e. Bitcoin mining rigs. He uses them primarily to balance the grid of Sweden. The satoshis that he earns through doing that, he simply supplies some hash rate to a mining pool, and in return for providing that service, he gets some compensation. But this figure here means that 58% of his revenue is coming from providing grid stabilization services to the grid of Sweden. The grid of Sweden has called on his services 11,247 times in 1 year. That's a lot of times. And guess why? It wasn't to ramp down consumption, it was to ramp it up. Because what happens in Sweden is you get oversupply of renewable energy. And when you get oversupply, that can threaten the multi-billion-dollar infrastructure of the grid. And so that wind farm operator, if they oversupply energy, they can get a fine by the grid operator, and that fine can be equal to half of their entire revenue for the year. He's solving this problem by taking on that energy that would otherwise endanger that key grid infrastructure. And this is happening not just in one country, but many countries around the world. This image here is going to be proliferated by the very technology that policymakers and regulators spent 5 years vilifying. Life is full of ironies. These countries around the world are already using Bitcoin mining to balance their grids as they place more renewable energy onto them. So what's the relevance to the blackout on the Iberian Peninsula 1 year ago? The relevance is this. Whilst Bitcoin mining would not have prevented the blackout, what was found subsequently was the entire grid, and many of the grids in Europe were extremely vulnerable because of this phenomenon where we have more renewable energy and more AI data centers coming onto the grid in parallel. And not one, but 4 different agencies said that we need more flexible demand, more demand response. The world's largest energy policy agency, the Spanish government arm responsible for climate and energy, the world's largest renewable, or Europe's largest renewable energy consumer group, and the UN-backed Energy Policy Network all said that to grow and scale our grids of the future, to decarbonize and to stabilize, we must have more flexible suppliers of energy. And it just so happens that Bitcoin mining is the world's most flexible energy consumer by far. And again, this is not my opinion, but it is best in class in 3 of the 4 categories by which we adjudge flexible load. Second only to battery on the one variable of immediacy. So Bitcoin mining is one technology, but it provides us access to 2 revolutions, a monetary revolution and an energy revolution. Thank you.